Hi guys, it's Jeff with Oru Kayak. There's a lot of stuff out here, and if we're going paddling, we're going to need to bring some of it, and I'm going to go through all of it for you and with you. Ultimately, what we want to think about is the day that we're going to go paddling. What are the conditions? How much wind is there going to be? What's the ambient temperature going to be? What kind of things might we encounter? So have that in mind. Do a little research the night before. Know kind of what your tides and currents are doing. There's a lot of information online for you to get that in, and that'll help you decide what of this arrangement that you want to use. So break it down. We want to dress for immersion, and what that means, fancy word for getting wet. So if we happen to get wet, we don't want our day to be over. So your options are going to be, there's many options, but ultimately the inexpensive option would be maybe a neoprene. This is a shorty wetsuit. This shorty has short arms and short legs. If you were to capsize and get wet, the shorty will keep you still out there paddling, and the water's going to get inside the wetsuit. Your body's going to heat up the water, and you're going to be all right. With any type of rescue skills, you're going to be in the boat within a minute or two, and you'll be able to generate heat. So neoprene option is a good option for you. If it's a colder day, you might think about a full suit. A full suit's going to have long arms, long legs. This variety is a stretchy, really lightweight suit. I like to have that for paddling. A Farmer John would have sleeveless, so no arms. But for a colder day, you think about having a full suit. So a full suit is going to keep your arms and legs warm, but it's going to have more neoprene over top of your chest, and that's going to generate heat, and it's going to warm the blood for the rest of the body. If you're going to go with a neoprene option, you want to have something like a splash top over top of that. Splash top is going to shed you from the wind. It's also going to allow, as the water gets onto you, either from the paddle or spray from a wave, it's going to hit the splash top and then it's going to shed off. Sort of like a shingle, you're going to have a skirt that's underneath this. So the water comes in and it just goes off of you, off the boat, and back into the ocean, bay, wherever you might be. So those are your neoprene options. If you're going to have a dry top on, dry layers are great. Dry layers, if you're not familiar, are something that has a gasket. If you're not allergic to it, latex gasket is the most common. That's gonna keep the water from going in from your neck. They also have gaskets here in the sleeves, and that's gonna keep you dry underneath on top, and then you have a skirt underneath you. Therefore, you should be fairly dry. If you capsize, go upside down and roll, you still haven't gained a whole lot of water if you have a dry top option. That's your dry top option. If it's a colder day or you're going for a longer paddle, definitely coastal, you might consider a full suit. Full suit is you're gonna have your arms, legs, everything is going to be dry. Latex gaskets again on wrists and neck. Really nice to have the relief zipper option. And these have a booty, so your feet are dry as well. It does become a safety situation to have a dry suit. They're not cheap, but worth the investment if you're going to be paddling long distances, or there's an opportunity that you may actually be getting wet, whether it's waves or wind. So dry suit option is a great option. So if you're going to go with a dry option, you're going to have layers underneath. You probably, if you're going to be on a dry top, you're going to have some type of a pant or a short that you're going to have. A non-cotton layer, anytime you're going to be in the water environment. Cotton is going to absorb water. When it absorbs water and the wind blows on you, it's going to what they call convection. It's going to lower your core temperature. So you want to be in something that is going to allow you to be comfortable. Even if it gets wet, it's still going to keep you warm. So if it's a cold day, you might have a fleece option that's a little bit thicker. That's going to give you a little bit of a barrier between the cold water and your body. This is a merino wool option that's going to be a little bit thinner, but it's still going to be, even if it does get wet, it's still going to keep you warm. So a couple options there. That's for your clothing. It's pretty common. People know that you lose 8 to 9% of your body heat through your head. So when you're kayaking, having an option to have your head covered is really good. You can have a beanie that's non-cotton that can do that same thing for you. If you know that you're going to be in and around water, this is a neoprene option, and it also has a little, it's like a balaclava here, so it's gonna an option to kind of keep the same thing, the rain or the water just rolling off. It's a balaclava option, and that will actually allow the water to just drain off. It's going to keep you warm even when it is wet. So I think that kind of rounds out the clothing options for you. If you're going to be in an environment where there's rocks, anything that you can hit with your head, having some type of helmet is a really good safety idea, and it's something that you're going to want to have. It will give you some insulation and keep you a little bit warmer. So think about having a helmet for an option. Buffs are something light material. A lot of times they're made out of 50 SPF. That way it's going to keep the sun off your face, off your neck. You can make little beanies out of them as well. It's something you might want to have with you. So those are your clothing options, and you'll figure out what's best for you on those days. You do need to have something on your feet, and right in front of me here, down low, we have 3 different options. If you were to be in an area where you're going to need good footing, the shoes on the left side, those have a sticky rubber bottom. Those work out really well. Most of the time when you're going to be paddling, you want a shoe that's going to drain. There's some drain here, but there's also drain holes in the bottom of these shoes, and those work quite well. And then your neoprene is the same as your wetsuits. If water gets in, it's not a big deal. Your body's going to warm that temperature, and it's going to keep your extremities better. So one of those 3 options will probably be good. You want to think about having closed toe. Anytime that you can bump, stub your toe, or step on something, some sea life, that's not going to work out that great for you. So let's talk about some of the essentials you want to have as far as gear, past the equipment. Anytime that you're going to be paddling, you do need a paddle, right? So you're going to have your paddle with you. Your paddle is here. If it's a cold, blustery day, you might think about having one other layer. It's a clothing layer, and that's something that goes over your hands. They make neoprene glove options. Personally, I like to be able to feel the paddle underneath and in my palm. So I would like to have contacts. They call that paddle dexterity, when you can touch the paddle. These little guys right here, they call them pogies. They really save you if it's a cold, blustery day. Usually Velcro. They go on the paddles like such. Hand goes through, it's grabbing over onto the paddle itself. It's going to keep a lot of the water out, but it's going to keep all of the wind out. And this tends to keep you quite warm. You can have one and slide it back and forth, or you can have a second pogie. That way both hands are equally as warm. All right. A couple of the other essentials. It's good to have a paddle that you're paddling with, and it's really good if you've ever lost a paddle, to have a paddle, this is in a mesh bag. This can be stowed inside the kayak. Having an extra paddle is the easiest thing that can go away from you in the wind. Really a good safety item, and it's one of those things you have it and you're probably not going to need to use it, but the first time you don't have it, you're probably going to need it. You can stow a paddle inside the boat. You can also break it down and have it actually on top of the deck so that it's usable right away. Definitely an essential item you want to have with you. We talked about all the different clothing options. The skirt is definitely one that's going to go underneath those top layers. Top layer is going to come over this, that way the water sheens off. You don the skirt like this, logo in the front, handle's going to be out in front. PFD, absolutely essential. You want to look to get a type 3 PFD. There's many different varieties. Normally with sea kayaking, you want to have good range of motion here. You don't need as much flotation as you would in maybe in a whitewater environment, but the type 3 is going to work out really well for you. And if you like the zipper variety, that's great. A lot of them will have a buckle. Make sure that you buckle and zipper your life vest. The bottom zip, the zipper is very important, but the bottom buckle is really the one that's going to keep this from coming off of you if for some reason you don't get it tight enough at first. Stored inside your life vest, it's good to have some snacks. You don't have to stop and get a bag out, but you can have some snacks with you. You can put a warm hat in the other side. Really good to have a whistle attached to your PFD. It's a good safety item. Stowed in your boat, behind your seat, I would like to have a float bag. The float bag, if you haven't seen one of these before, this one has 2 valves. Open up the valve. You can float both sides. One side should be enough to give you some stability. This gives you the ability to make your paddle an outrigger. It gives you the ability to kind of lean against it in a rescue scenario. There's plenty of videos on that online for you to familiarize yourself with that, but that's one of those items you want to have with you. Another item, essential, having a float bag. This float bag has that same valve on it. You would open it up. You want to inflate it. It's got a nice shape to it. It goes inside the boat. This is going to keep water from filling up the boat. If you don't have float bags and you are to capsize, you can actually fill the entire boat and you have a safety problem then. Your boat is too submerged for you to even get water out of it. So really important to have bags inside to displace that water. It doesn't have to be a float bag. A lot of times people will use a float bag and then they'll have some dry bags as well. These are 2 different size dry bags. You can have air in these and that's going to displace water as well. You can also have your items that you want to make sure that they stay dry. So different options for dry bags that are out there. I like to have a dry bag with me at all times. And most of the time, your safety piece is going to be a cell phone, right? We all have cell phones these days. Cell phone you can get tides and currents on. You can also call for help if you need. You can call a friend that might be seasoned in helping. Cell phone is definitely one of those rescue items that you want to have with you. If you have a cell phone, have a backup battery with you. You definitely, in colder environments, are going to lose some battery, and it's really a good safety item to have with you. So a battery and a way to attach it to the phone, really good. Some of the other safety items that you want to think about, this is a rope, 75 feet of rope inside here. If I had a friend that was getting a little bit tired or maybe had an injury to a shoulder, I can assist by towing him with the rope. This has a quick release on it, which if for some reason I needed to release that boat for whatever reason, I have the option of doing that. So that's what they call a rope bag, really helpful. When water gets in your boat, we're gonna wanna get it out. Sponge is probably the quickest, easiest for getting the small amounts of water out. They're cheap. We can have that underneath our seat in our boat. This is the item that you're gonna wanna have for getting water out of the boat. It's a bilge pump. Bilge pumps are simple. You figure out how to use them. If you haven't used it before, when you pull up like this, it's actually going to send water out. When you push down, it's gonna bring water into the chamber. You pull up, it's gonna emit water. So that's the way bilge pumps work. If you think about how many gallons of water you have in your boat, this can get a little bit tiring. So having a float bag in there, really important for solving that problem. Some of the other safety items that you might be interested in having, if for some reason you need to call for help, having a marine radio, this is waterproof, it can stay on your PFD, really beneficial. You have many different channels with a marine radio. You can stay in contact with people in your party and pick a certain channel that you're going to be on. You can also get weather information from a marine radio ongoing. There's air traffic control basically for water, and that's a channel that you can find out what's going on with the other boats. You can see when the big ships are coming in. That's a channel that you can access. If you need to call for help, this will gain access. If you're in the area where the Coast Guard is going to rescue you, this will get you to that. The first thing they're going to ask you is, where are you? Having a GPS, super important to be able to give coordinates on where you are. If you're in the fog and you can't see line of sight where you're going, having your GPS and knowing how to use it is really going to be helpful for you. A little bit more expensive option would be an inReach or a Spot, but these things, they can have pre-scheduled information that you can send to a friend. If something goes wrong, this is what I need you to do. You can also call for help, call for rescue with one of these devices. So worth the money, especially if you need it. What I like to do when I'm going out is know what the currents are, know what the tides are. So I'll do a little research the night before. I'll print out what the tides are, what the currents are, and I'll have this in paper form. This is really important. I want to know what the currents are. So if the water is coming in to the bay, that's a flood, and I want to know how fast that water is coming in. So I want to know what that current is. If the water is leaving the bay, that would be an ebb, and I want to know what that number is and when those tides are. So having that information, when's high tide, when's low tide, and having that accessible while I'm on the boat. So you're going to want an option of a deck bag. A deck bag, you can place this information inside the deck bag, and you can usually have some viewing space in a deck bag. So that's really a nice option. Another option where I don't have just a little space, I have the entire space, would be one of this variety. This gives you the ability to kind of look at both sides of the information, and it can be right there on your deck. Having the information is really good. Having a chart and knowing how to read the chart is really essential if you're going to be out in the coast. And then also if you're in a bay, where are the shipping lanes? What's going on? Where are the deep spots? Where are the situations where I may need to know what the currents are? So having a chart, this chart is laminated. This can be right there on the top of the deck, and knowing how to read it, it's definitely one of those things you want to get educated on, and it's a safety item that you want to have with you. A compass, if there's fog, a compass, when you have a chart, really great item to have on the boat. It can be attached to the boat. You can see that even if it's up on the front of the cockpit. That's really one of those items you want to have with you. I hope this video was helpful. There's a lot here and there's a lot of information, and we could go into each one of these topics for 10-15 minutes each. Try to give you an overview of what essentials and the things typically you would use for sea kayaking. If you're interested in more educational videos, go ahead and check out orukayak.com, and I look forward to seeing you guys out on the water.